Hello, welcome. This is really, really exciting today. I'm so excited to welcome you to Pivoting Plans in COVID-19. I have a wonderful special guest with me. Her name is Michelle Mercier. And today we're going to be exploring this whole COVID-19 insanity, what it's doing to us as business owners, what it's doing to us mentally, what it's doing to our businesses, and most importantly, what we can actually do about it so we can take swift, empowered action to rise up as individuals, as better leaders, and come out of this actually stronger than ever. So let me tell you a little bit about Michelle, whom I adore. I think she's incredible. She's smart. She is a life changer. She is insightful, thoughtful, and she brings an incredible level of humanity to the businesses that she serves. So I'm proud to call her my friend. She is a business strategy coach. She's also the founder of the Surviving Entrepreneurship Community. She is a sought after speaker, and once you hear her talk, you'll understand why. And she's also the managing director of the Worcester, Massachusetts area chapter of the Polka Dot Powerhouse. Michelle herself is a powerhouse. And when she's not helping her clients succeed, she loves spending time with her two little guys and husband going on hikes. I also enjoy hiking with my husband. And she likes doing movie nights and so much more. Welcome, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. What an introduction, and I'm so fortunate to be here.
Well, I'm trying to roll out the digital red carpet for you because I think
Thank you.
you're
I
awesome.
appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I'll take red carpet, especially in COVID, we'll take it.
No mask required.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
let's just dive right in. A couple things I want to lead with. Everyone that's paying attention and watching us now, you and I are both going to be sharing some awesome goodies for those that have registered and also for those that are interested in following up with us. We're going to be giving away some great stuff, so stay tuned for that. But let's actually just dive right in and talk about this. Can we just acknowledge this is awful? Everything that's going through, the devastation to the businesses that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think get it out there, right? Like I think rip the Band-Aid off on that because
Yeah.
I think sometimes as a society we have a kind of look on the bright side, force the smile on your face mentality, and this is some serious shit. So,
It
you
is.
have to appreciate both sides of it. Absolutely.
I think what I'm seeing is a lot of facades are crumbling right now. And I think that's really valuable because for years, we all existed in an economy where it's like, how you doing? Better than ever, super great. And now you
Fine.
finally get people that are actually admitting, this is awful and I'm not okay. So if
Yeah.
people are finally having like real conversations, and I find that business is being done from a much more human, much more productive way because people are leading with vulnerability.
Yeah, and I think I have to agree. And I think also, they're cutting out the BS, right? I've heard a lot of my clients say that because we've had the playing field kind of leveled on a lot for some people. We're all at home. We're all kind of forced in that they've been able to kind of release certain things that maybe were not aligned with their business, maybe not aligned with their life. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really kind of done that for them, which has
Yeah.
worked to their advantage because then they can be extra focused on the things that matter, or be more strategic, stuff like that, which is really valuable in itself.
I have to say, it's been really nice to be able to chat with my clients when they're basically in their bathrobe. It's like, oh my God, look at all the facility,
Human.
the facades that we put up there and the
Yeah.
silly illusions of how professional we are. Meanwhile, we're just humans
Yeah.
talking to humans. And when we strip the facades away, I find that we can actually do business from a more authentic place.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, so those of you who don't know me, on paper, my company is actually called Create Honesty Inc. Because I do believe in that honest approach to business, to life, all of the things. If somebody's going to come talk to me, I don't care if you put on the perfect makeup, the perfect hair, the perfect stuff, right? Because you can't have the good in life without the bad. So I know even if you say I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, there are days when you're not, and that's okay. And I agree with you in what you're saying about, now that's kind of crumbling for some people, but that's good for your brand. Sometimes that's good for you because people relate to humanity, right? You got to put the
Absolutely.
humanity back in business, which is what we're seeing a lot of right now.
So what you're saying is I didn't actually need to shower, get dressed, put on makeup, and do my hair to talk to you?
Right. I think we said earlier, like, this is my second day in a row of
Oh,
showering and hair and makeup. This is like monumental here, guys.
I know. My husband looks at me and he's like, oh my. I
Yeah.
know, haven't seen this in a while.
Yeah. You're like, you're welcome.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that you're supporting a lot of people. And helping business owners to navigate this difficult time. And, obviously it's difficult financially for a lot of businesses, not all businesses. Some businesses are thriving right now. But the question I have for you is, when you're giving advice, when you're helping people just sit in their discomfort, what is the best mental strategy that you've been advising people that helps them to actually take it on and not lose their mind?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think the question is extremely important that you're asking, because as many of us were kind of forced into our houses with that happening, we were stripped of our typical coping mechanisms, right? Which for some of us may be external. Whether you're going to a movie or going out with your friends, those types of coping mechanisms that we don't have anymore. So I've been working with a lot of clients in, under that premise, as well as speaking to them about what they can and cannot control, right? That's a big one in this, because I think for a lot of people, you don't know when it's going to end, myself included. And if you think about that too long, it freaks you out. And from a business perspective, how am I going to plan? What am I going to do? What's the government going to do? Oh my God, round and round and down the hole you go. But I
Yes.
think if you can focus on which parts of it can you control. Can you control your client or customer appreciation? Can you control, certain different things in your life? I think it allows you to release some of the anxiety and some of
Hmm.
the mental trash, per se, because there's enough of that kind of thrown at us on the daily. So I think that's kind of one of the number one things I've been working with on clients. And a close second to that is also habit forming,
Mm.
because we don't have necessarily the office to go to or the thing to do right now. So I've been working with clients on kind of getting to their more ideal state, breaking some good and bad habits, things like that.
That's wonderful. Well, for those of you that don't know, I wrote a book about habit. So when you mentioned habit, I'm like, ooh, I could easily go down this
Yeah.
rabbit hole, but that's not what we're talking about today. I think it's really wonderful that you're helping people to control the controllables and surrender to the
Yeah.
incontrollables. I think that's a really powerful thing. And I think particularly because all of this is so maddening and we do feel helpless, it can actually lead to us making fear-based decisions and decisions out
Yes.
of chaos and a desperate bid to control anything.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
oftentimes that can lead to us making the wrong decision, disastrous decisions, and really showing lots of cracks in our leadership style.
Agreed.
So we may not be showing up the way we want to for our customers or for the people that rely on us for a paycheck.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I am a huge advocate for not but not making fear-based decisions. I've had a lot of clients come to me, especially, over the past months, when we kind of all figured out, like, this is a long game, right? We're not going to be closed for 2 weeks. We're in it for the long haul, and I've had clients come to me emotionally wrecked, and saying, for lack of a better term, fuck it, I'm going to close my doors. I'm done. And that's when it's my job to say, whoa, like, what's the strategy behind this? If it is a strategic move, or it is an absolute that you need to close your doors because you can't afford your staff or whatever that
Hmm.
may be, fine. But if it's just kind of a fatigue moment, or a frustration moment, or a fear-based moment, that's a different type of conversation that needs to happen, right? Because it has to go somewhere. That emotion has to go somewhere, but it shouldn't necessarily be focused at closing your doors.
Hmm.
That being said, there are some absolutes that could lead to that. But I've had a
Hmm.
lot of conversations over the last couple of months about, what are the different scenarios, and thinking strategically and not letting fear drive it.
Mm. So I've been actually having really incredible conversations with a lot of our clients lately, talking about pivoting strategies. And I want to talk about some of those. And I'd love for you to kind of like weigh in and let's really just kind of sink our teeth into this, because
Yeah.
there's obviously the mental stuff. You and I could talk about the mental stuff
Yeah.
all day long,
All
because
day. Yeah.
you and I both know if you don't take care of what's up here, the rest is
Yeah.
kind of kaput.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I did allude to the topic of my book. It is called The Six Habits. If you Google it or if you look it up on Amazon, you can find out about it. These are foundational wisdom
Yeah.
things that you can find out about that will help you. Definitely check out Michelle's website as well. So let me tell you the conversations that I've been having. So a lot of brick and mortar businesses, they are run in a very traditional analog fashion, meaning
Yes.
that the marketing is very digital And that's sometimes under duress, particularly if the business has been around for like 30 years. It's, it's the owners are older. They don't have time for this internet stuff.
Right, right.
And, that's actually perfectly normal. And then, you know, th- even yesterday, I was chatting with someone who had worked 30 years to disaster proof their business, but somehow they overlooked a pandemic. So, you
Go
know,
figure.
I know.
Goodness,
How
goodness.
dare they be not so thorough?
No.
Um, so then it's really a question of how do we pivot? And, I think this is an opportunity for all of us to consider what it is that we do and the ways that we do it. So as a marketing company, Vision Advertising provides marketing services. We help people to develop their marketing plans. We help people to execute their marketing plans. We help them to figure out who they are, who they're talking to. And, when we're doing that in a normal world, it's all fairly straightforward. Things
Yeah.
have definitely been put to the test in terms of our ability to be creative and helping people to pivot. And some of the new things that we're talking about now are the introduction of podcasts. We're helping our clients get podcasts off the ground, and we're helping businesses to actually take their business and turn it into an educational tool. Because if they're
Right.
teaching people in person, how can you actually do this in a way where you can teach people online? Can you build courses? Can you build something where you can use a tool like Zoom or like Facebook Portal to actually still give one-on-one support and still teach someone something like gymnastics?
Right.
How can you
Right.
do this?
Yeah.
Restaurants have done an incredible job of pivoting. They're probably
They
the most
have. Yeah.
visible.
Yeah. Restaurants, and I would say yoga studios. I've seen a lot of yoga studios do some
Yes.
really impressive work. Um, I know that we're not necessarily talking about mindset, but I think it comes into play a lot with this stuff too. And,
Hmm.
it's hard when you're a brick and mortar who has worked their ass off for 30 years. And some of these are family run, multi generational businesses
You're
that,
absolutely right.
when it comes to that stuff, I tend to look at it as like, look to your community, right? You've busted your ass online, offline, whatever that may look like. But what does your community look like? Ask for help. Some of
Hmm.
these businesses don't want to seem like they need it, or they want to kind of keep that facade up when
Hmm.
that's not the case, right? So
I
when you're
love that
going,
you brought that up. Thank you.
yeah,
I
you're
think the
welcome.
facade
You're welcome.
needs to die, and it's actually not a weakness to say,
No.
there's a pandemic. I need help. I don't want my business to die. What do you need?
Right. And I think there's also an aspect of releasing the guilt
Yes.
around this as well, like you alluded to. It's an effing pandemic. If you had told me this was going to happen, you couldn't have planned for it. So those of you people out there who are laying off staff, who are impacting
Hmm.
the trajectory of people's lives, there's a guilt that comes with that. But I was almost flip that on its head and say release that guilt, because guilt is about you, whereas compassion is about the employees or any other impacts that you've
Excellent
made.
point.
So that if you're feeling guilty because you laid somebody off, you're feeling guilty because you didn't have your books in order before a fucking pandemic, any of those things, that shit doesn't serve anybody right now, right? So and I swear a lot for anybody listening at home.
I do too. I'm really holding it
Watch
back
the
right now.
children. So I think you've got to release the guilt and again kind of sink into your entrepreneur or small business roots. And that's hard for some people, but I think the beautiful thing about not being an entrepreneur and being a small business owner is that we have somewhat of that fire in our bellies, right? We have that passion behind us
Hmm.
that, you know, maybe waiting because we're tired and we're scared and there's a lot of shit going on, but that does give us the ability to move
Hmm.
and to shift and to pivot and do all of those things too. So I think,
Hmm.
it's an adaptation. It's another adaptation
It
for
is.
us.
And I think there's a powerful difference between what happens and how we feel about what happens, what
Yes.
we need to do and how we feel about what we need to do. And I think, having been an entrepreneur since 19 years old, I have learned resiliency like you wouldn't believe. And I've
Amen.
fallen on my face. I can't even keep track anymore. It's
Yeah.
probably in the thousands.
Not
I've
worth
made
it.
so many. Yeah. Why
Not worth
bother?
keeping track.
Who needs a score sheet on that
I
one?
know.
But if we can regard these things as lessons and we can separate our feelings about it, like, there's a bunch of projects that I'm having to work on within the company right now that I wouldn't have had to work on because of the COVID stuff. We got the
Right.
Paycheck Protection Program.
Right.
Thank goodness. A lot of our clients are affected, which means that we're affected. And I have no
Yeah.
problem being vulnerable and stating that. It's okay. All businesses are affected somewhat. Some are really like in the green. They're like living their best life.
Yeah.
And
But
some
it's a choice.
businesses are
Yeah.
driving the struggle bus.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that I think has been really pivotal to a lot of people's success. Now, I've been talking to all the agency clients, okay?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and the difference I notice in the ability to pivot successfully really is mentally, because I've been talking to people that are having a hard time. They're swirling the drain. They're really just like, oh my God, I can't do this. Woe is me. And that's a legit response. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And
It's
this is
justified.
awful. Yes.
Yeah.
Then you've got the other people that's like, well, I'll deal with how I feel about it later, but this is what I need to do. And my feelings are irrelevant at the moment. I
Right.
can compartmentalize those and fully feel everything later.
Mhm.
And I can just do what I got to do. And I think that's
Right.
been one of the biggest indicators of pivoting success is people taking it on with gusto. Be like, I don't like this. And it doesn't matter that I don't like this. I got to pivot
Right.
like a boss because that's what the
Right.
business requires.
Yes. And I think, I've had a lot of conversations with people about this because, and I mean, no disrespect to those who are really struggling right now, but
Oh, same.
um, if I look at myself, having been an entrepreneur, having done a bunch of things in my lifespan, similar to you, resilience through, I don't even want to talk how many resilient situations I've had to tackle in my years.
Another
That's a
episode,
whole
another
other
day.
couple episodes. But, I always look at it as if you backed me into a corner and my family couldn't eat, or my house was being taken away, or any of the things, and I've been through some shitty financial things myself, you do what needs to be done. And if you're too tired to, then maybe that chapter has closed. Maybe you're not able to in that moment, but
Maybe
maybe
we
you
need
need
to
to reassess it.
accept that the
Yeah.
chapter has closed.
Yeah, which is easier said than done, right? It's very black and white what we just said, and I think there's different phases too. But I agree with what you're saying in the sense of, those who have been energized. There are certain people out there who have been energized by this crisis, right? So
Yeah.
they've gotten busy, right? And those are probably the people that you're seeing that are in the green and beyond. Um,
They saw it as
and
an
I,
opportunity. All threats
yeah,
are opportunities, by the
they
way.
are.
They're just
They are.
opportunities in disguise.
Yeah, and I think
And
it's
they may
also
taste
comes.
terrible.
Yeah, yeah, no shit. But it also comes down to not being paralyzed by it. I
Right.
think that's what we saw a lot in the beginning is it was such a shock and awe situation of
Absolutely.
like, this isn't happening. And it was truly the stages of grief, right? You've probably seen articles and stuff like
Absolutely.
that.
The grief
That people
journey
were dealing
needs to be
with.
acknowledged. And,
Exactly.
like we said, if we're talking about maybe that chapter has closed, maybe we need to allow ourselves to invite the grief in and to actually just grieve for the thing that is no longer, and it lived its life and it's over. And maybe that's okay. And like allowing it to be okay.
Right. And I think it's also, and again, not to disregard anyone who's really, struggling right now, can't eat, can't this, because then I think I'm
Right.
always a big fan of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if anyone is familiar with that. But it's essentially you need to be able to eat, you need to feel safe, you need to feel secure before you can think about, self and all of those things. However, I mean, you also have to be in a mental space as a business owner to look at your cash flow, to, examine how much money you have in the bank and how long you can last.
And make objective
Yeah,
decisions with the
exactly.
information that you have.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
mean, to that point, I mean, I'm so excited to talk to you personally because you and I are really passionately focused in much of what we do around the business owner, not so much the business itself. Because, my personal belief, and I know that you're going to agree with me when I say this, when you nurture, heal, and grow the business owner, you nurture, heal, and grow the business. You can't ignore the human behind the business. And at the start of all this madness, Julia, the woman I love, my partner, my
We all love her.
COO, badass, I love her.
Shout out.
She,
Yeah, I love
yeah, she's always had a very pragmatic view of things, and that didn't change. And, she's always been a wonderful example of this is what needs to happen. This is how I feel about it. They will be dealt with separately, and the show must go on. So that's been really empowering to see. And now that I'm here ever so briefly, it's much easier to carry on because there's no chaos. We've been able to keep our people employed, and we are able to pivot because we all feel, I guess, safer mentally. And
Yeah.
my team has been wonderful. They've been really candid. Like, Laura, if you're having a hard day, you can talk to us. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
feelings. That's
Nice.
nice.
Yeah.
Thanks. And it is
Yeah.
hard. And I think that businesses, they need people like you. They need people like me, and they need people like each other to be able to talk with and actually say,
Yeah.
you know what? This happy face crap is not real. I'm not fine. I'm not okay. I'm really
Yeah.
upset. I don't like
Yeah.
the way I'm having to do business. It's costing me money. I'm in the red. Help.
Yeah. I mean, and that's across whatever business you're in, right? So some of my clients are C-suite level execs and some of them are solopreneurs, right?
Mhm.
And whether you're C-suite exec dealing with your employees and all the emotions that come with that and trying to gain productivity out of your people, you can't do that unless you actually ask them how they're doing and mean it at this
Yeah.
point,
You
right?
have to
Like,
tend to the humans more now
yeah,
than ever.
that wall's been ripped down, and there's going to be a lot of people in the corporate space that have challenges with that. Quite frankly, that's probably an understatement by saying a lot. And as
Yeah.
a solopreneur, you're exactly right. Either way, it's a top-down trickle, right? So,
Mhm.
and that goes in families as well, right? If you're at the top of the pyramid and you're spiraling out of control, it's only going to come downwards, right? So I would rather see, and it's such a cliche or whatever, just say oxygen mask on first, right? So if you are not in the headspace and you are running a company right now, you can't go from the top down necessarily. And you're very lucky that you can to your employees and that they've opened up in that way. But there are some leaders that cannot turn and talk to their people and say, I'm a mess, because that freaks everyone else below them out. Right.
Yeah.
But you still need to leave room for yourself to freak out. You need to process that emotion no matter what.
Absolutely. I love that you said all that. I agree with all of this stuff. So I'd love to hear just shifting the direction to a little bit more like specific pivoting strategies, because I know that's what a lot of people that are listening to this are
Yeah.
really wanting is like, well, what can I do for my business? And what can I
Right.
do to actually not go bankrupt? What can I do?
Yeah.
So I'd
Yeah.
love to hear if you have any specific examples of some of your clients doing a great job. I mean, if you want to give your clients some shout outs and talk
Yeah.
about their
Yeah.
businesses, let's celebrate who's doing a great job. I'm happy to name some of our
Yeah.
clients and,
Absolutely.
pump them up too. But I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the most badass pivots you've seen so far, and what made them so badass?
Oh God, so many, so many. There's some local. So I'm in Hudson, Mass. So I'm kind of a geek, even if they're not my clients, and I'm always looking at the different
Hmm.
ways that people are pivoting. And I have to say, there's a restaurant in town here, Kith and Kin. If you're not familiar, go Google them in Hudson, Mass.
Hmm.
That they're not my client, but shout out to them because maybe you want to be my client because I love you so much and a little bit obsessed. Because I watched them pivot as a restaurant, and it was so awesome. And it just mirrored a lot of the things that I was telling my clients too about look at your cash flow. Do you have a burn down plan on your cash and how long it's going to last you and what that means, and have you
Hmm.
applied for every funding that you could apply for? I even created an actual resource hub for small businesses on my website with all of the information in one place, because I felt like at the beginning especially we were getting just slammed with information. Apply
Hmm.
here, don't apply here, do this, don't do that. um, so I think those are kind of the key things that I've looked at, as well as tapping into your brand ambassadors, right? So that community feel. If you have people out there who are championing you, let them do it. I think one of the best things that I've seen a lot of businesses do is say, this is our journey. This is what the journey looks like today. The journey looks like today sucks. And the journey looks like we closed our doors, but we'll be back. The journey looks like, and I mean, whether that's through social or email or whatever, making sure that you are sharing your journey with your people. Because the
There's
worst thing,
solidarity in that.
yeah. And I think the worst thing about it that I've seen from some, not my clients, but other businesses is radio silence. Um,
Hmm.
and that is
Pride is
that.
expensive.
Yeah. 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 I mean, and it could be that you're genuinely struggling, which is, valid in what we're dealing with, or who knows what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
But, I think getting a handle on your finances, number one, which I'm always surprised so many business owners do not have. Shout out to all of my bookkeepers, all of my finance people, and clients out there who do that work, because there are so many who don't have a handle on their numbers, and I'm sure
Hmm.
they do now.
Well,
Um,
and also if you're emotionally triggered by what's going on, you don't
yeah,
always want to look because you're scared of
exactly.
what you might
Yes.
find. listen, I'll be perfectly honest. I don't want to check the accounts sometimes. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
yep, we're
Yeah.
down by a lot because our clients are hurting and we're not about to be jerks about it. So it's like, okay, no problem. We got you. I don't want to
Mhm.
check, but I got to do what I got to do regardless of how I feel about it.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean that, and it's also about scarcity versus an abundance mindset. And for those of you listening who may not understand what those two things are,
Yeah, I'd love for you to explain
scarcity,
that.
yeah, so scarcity mindset is when you're holding on to dear life, you're petrified, you're like, it's like when you have something and you're going to hug it and you're not going to let it go, and you're worried about your competition coming
Mhm.
in, and you're always worried about what that looks like. Whereas an abundance mentality is kind of more of, there's enough to go around. There's enough to go around. There's collaboration over competition, there's asking for help, all of those things, right?
Yep.
So I think, being aware of that too, being aware to your point of those triggers, saying, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist. Well, we've been in this for X amount of months now, it fucking exists, right?
Sure does.
So, and I'm
Can't ignore the
always,
giant
yeah,
elephant that's sitting on your chest. You
exactly,
really can't.
exactly. And when I give a lot of talks, one of the things that I always say is like, if you don't know your numbers, get the F off my talk, get off my video, get off this call, go look at them. And it's nothing to be ashamed of, because with understanding your numbers, with understanding all of that comes power, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't come
Information is
defeat.
power. Absolutely.
Exactly. And then you can take action, which is
Mhm.
even better.
You know, I think it's actually really important for people to uh, be very real with how they feel. Definitely know the numbers. But I think for those of us who are not mentally like up for the task of looking at how bad something really is and they're not ready to face it, for these people, I'd actually see, if you still have health insurance, maybe see if you can get a telehealth appointment with a therapist to talk it over,
Yeah.
to just actually face the trauma of this thing that I've spent so many years building is now on fire and
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. And I don't feel like I have someone to talk to. I mean, you do, but just stating that I'm not okay is so empowering because it actually lets it out. Listen, I like Mr. Rogers. I almost quoted Mr. Rogers in my book 48 times, but then I was like, this is not an homage to Mr. Rogers. I need to stop. So
He's got some good points, man.
I held back. But my favorite one is you need to get the mad out.
Yeah, you do.
Get it
You do.
out. Because once you actually you're bottling it up. Once you can get it out, then you can get to look at the numbers. And I think that's a really powerful thing that you're talking about is
Yeah.
you have to know what's what so you can make some really good sound decisions, um, you know, from an objective place about what to
Yes.
do.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in tandem with therapists for some of my clients, because as a coach, you never want to kind of cross that line into therapy territory, because I'm by no means qualified for that. I know enough
Same.
to be dangerous and to support people, but I also know when to say, "Where's your therapist? Can I talk to them?" to make sure that we're on the same page with things, because
Mhm.
this is a crisis. It's a crisis for a reason, right? So it's a fucking
Mhm.
pandemic. Um, so I think if your head isn't on straight, there's no shame in that. But I think also, if we can reframe it to, if you want your business to survive, ask for help, versus, oh, I'm shameful that that my pride's getting hurt, or that I'm
Right.
asking for help. No, this is a strategy in itself. I speak to a lot of clients
It
about kind of
is.
building your support team. I have two coaches, a therapist, an acupuncturist, shout out to all those people, because they keep me going.
Mhm.
um, and that, as a business owner, is extremely valuable to have. And I look at it as a business strategy, quite frankly.
Mhm. I would say from a marketing perspective, hi, we're a marketing company. Got to bring it up at some
Exactly.
point.
Yeah, of course.
Um, so, from a marketing perspective, I think the things that I've seen from our clients has been total, unabashed honesty about it sucks. We don't like this, but we love you. And we're going to do everything we can do to make you feel better. And please be patient with us while we're doing our best. And we know that our best is not what you're familiar with. And expressing like a lot of concern and listening and going above and beyond. And not being miserly when it comes to the pennies and really just doing our best to like care for others. And I think
Right.
that that's been huge. And what that does is when we genuinely express care and vulnerability, what it does is it makes people lean in. Okay. So
Yeah.
people like, I'm going to I'm going to blow the minds of the people watching this right now and listening. Nobody likes people that pretend to be perfect because they're annoying, and I don't want to hang out with that person because it's like,
Not relatable. Not
no,
relatable.
it's not. It's actually
Yeah.
repulsive. What makes
Yeah.
people lean in is this, like, it's the same thing that happens personally. If I'm at a party and I'm meeting people and, this one seems really perfect and this one has a perfect life, I'm going to be like, oh, hmm, okay, well, we don't have a lot in common because I'm actually not perfect. So I'm going to look for the other people. And then when I find the person that, answers the question, how are you? Well, I'm mostly good, but I've got this going on. Oh, I feel like I can relate to that person. Now, the lesson that we can take from this is relatability. People like to do business with people that remind them of themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
when we can extend our vulnerability and extend ourselves and just say, this is hard for me. I hate this. I miss the way things used to be. What you do is you introduce a level of humanity, relatability, and engenders people to want to lean closer to your business because you're not just a frigid, like faceless business. The
Right.
business is now comprised of humans with feelings and thoughts, and that makes people feel safe and like they're part of the club versus
Yeah.
excluded, because the people that we talk to and that we sell to, they have their own issues. They're having a hard time too. And if they
Right.
feel like they're having a hard time all by themselves, but you're just fine and you're tough and everything's great and you're just, whatever, and you're not talking about it, they're not going to feel as intimate with you because it
Right.
doesn't feel like there's anything in common, and it actually brings out their insecurities.
Yeah. And I think, you know what? I mean, you just defined a true definition of a brand anyway, like on a lot of levels, right? Brand with integrity. And I think people see through that shit, right?
Yeah.
You can tell the companies right now who pivoted in a way that was, you can tell the marketing steps that they took. They released the letter that was, COVID is here, this is what we're doing, we love you. Like they followed the steps, right? That comes with crisis
They
planning.
tried to PR the heck out of it.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, but I think there's always, I have so many thoughts around this. There's always,
Take your time.
that kind of relatability factor for you, like you're saying. And I think it also has to do with who you want to do business with, right? If
Yeah.
you are at that stage potentially in your business, and you see it a lot with early on entrepreneurs, where you'll take money wherever money comes from, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just hustling. You're like, get the money in the door. Um, you're kind of my client. Sure. Maybe I don't understand my full avatar of who I want to work with, and that may feel a lot like that to people, right?
Yeah,
Like
they're like, money is green.
I'll take the money
Mm-hmm.
wherever I can get it. And there's no shame in
Absolutely.
blame on that to a point. But at some point you're going to have to come back to center and realize who you want to do business with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once the bills are paid, once you're secure that way, who do you want to be aligned with? When this whole thing
Mm-hmm.
started, one of my coaches said to me, you know, you have to show up in the way that you want to be remembered during this time, right?
Mm.
Whether that's online, whether that's offline, how do you want people to remember you? And that in itself to me is a huge marketing strategy, because
I
people are
love
going to
that.
tie this,
That's right.
thank you, are going to tie this gigantic event to certain memories,
Mm-hmm.
right? So are they gonna tie you as a brand to, trying to sell the shit out of them? Or are they going to tie you as a brand to, actually giving a damn
That's
and
right.
understanding the what's in it for them factor, and
Mm-hmm.
identifying with them as human beings? I mean, there are some people who will listen to this and be like, well, that's crap, right? Which is, they're not my people, quite frankly. But, I think there's something to be said about showing up in a way that has integrity and will be memorable for your clients. Not just
Absolutely.
right now. It's not about right now. It's the
Memory that
longevity of the
endures.
brand. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I have one client, shout out, I will give her a shout out, Mary O'Hagan. She's a wonderful realtor, high performing, amazing person. And she took the time to strategically give a shit about people, right? So not in a slimy way, but in a, I'm going to run the food drive. I'm going to do this. And I have to say, her business is kicking ass. And it's
That's
not that she did it
wonderful.
the slimy way, did it because she genuinely cares about
She
humans.
led with her heart.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think people have
Heart-centered
been aching
entrepreneurs.
for heart-centered business for a long time, and not for nothing. Again, this stuff sucks. I don't like what's going on in the world. And the COVID stuff is almost the least of our concerns these days because the whole world is on fire, it seems. But people have been aching for corporate that doesn't feel so stiff. They've been aching for business that feels more like a friend. And I think now that you get this time for people to put away their silly facades, what you're doing is you're revealing the truth of how people truly are. And I think in many ways, oh my gosh, it's wonderful. Like I'm seeing people that are doing a lot like your client, and they're really stepping up and doing things for the community and taking things on, and listening and really
Right.
caring. And for those of us that wish to build a brand like Julia and I do, where we genuinely care, you can talk to us about anything. We'll help you pivot. Is it in our job description? No, but we're going to do it anyway because that's what the situation calls for. Like,
Yeah.
I think that this really sets things apart. So you brought up something that I would love to sink a few teeth into.
Yeah.
You say the ideal customer, like avatar, right? So an
Yeah.
avatar, for those that don't know what that means, is basically like it's the embodiment, and it's kind of like the picture of who it is that you want to sell to. So we've been working on building out our ideal customer profiles for our clients for years.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways that we can actually come out of this and pivot strongly is to, instead of just being like, oh, I do business with anybody and everybody, now because the world is on fire and business might be a little down, maybe this is your time to actually define, do you want to work with Susie Q, or do you want to work with Bob, or these fictitious names, and what are their qualities? Are they like you? What problem are you solving for this person, and why will they love you? It's because your values align? Is it because you're like similar human beings, because you care about the same nonprofits? Like, who is this person? Because once you start changing the way you do your marketing and putting your voice out there and start speaking to that one person, it starts to get better. And then when you're talking to your ideal, they love you. You can be vulnerable. You don't need to be afraid. And when you go vulnerable, they lean in so hard, they're almost going to break their chair. That's what your ideal customer is.
It makes the selling easier.
It does, and it costs less.
Exactly, because you're not cultivating and touching those leads so many times just to kind of break through that barrier. And I couldn't agree more. I think this is a time for a lot of people to kind of go back to the strategic drawing board, right? And say, and I'm not saying, I think there was like a battle going on in social media about like, I'm going to be super productive during this time and learn to knit and learn to do all these things and strategically do all this crazy stuff, versus like, screw you guys, we're in a crisis. Don't be hyper productive, right? But there's a sweet spot in between there where you can, kind of leverage some of this stuff to go back to the drawing board. For myself personally, it's given me a tremendous ability to slow down, pick my head up and say, okay, what does my avatar look like? Who do I want to do business with? And how can I, to your point, speak directly to that person, right? In my marketing, in my outreach, with my brand ambassadors, whatever that looks like. I think who is it that, I think it's the head of BNI or the founder of BNI was calling it this, like the great pause. And I think business wise, like we're really lucky for that fact of the matter, because when else have you not been doing kind of business as usual, right? Unless you make a strategic, well-timed decision, if we were in business as usual right now, to pick your head up and pivot or do whatnot, that maybe would have never happened. So I'm really interested, quite frankly, to see which businesses come out on the other end of this, brand new ones, because, the ones that came out of the Depression were some amazing ones. The staying power of some businesses were incredible.
Hey, listen, I built my business in a recession, so we're fine. We're kind of bulletproof. It's like, really? You want to throw a pandemic? Come at me, bro.
Well, and I think
I got this.
That's the way to look at it is, and I mean, I built my business similar to you, with 2 kids in and out of hospitals, myself battling illnesses, built 2 businesses in that. And I'm not saying that's for everybody, but at some point you got to dig deep. You got to dig deep and say, bring it on. Because we are in this for the long haul. And I say that about entrepreneurship in general. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So buckle up.
We could also say that about all this craziness in the world. It won't be resolved by next week. which
Yeah.
pains me
Yeah.
to say that. But at the beginning of this, I'm the person that will see the problem 5 miles down the road. And I'll be like, oh, that's a problem. Ooh, it's a big one, right? So I saw this
Yeah.
coming and I'm like, we have a problem and it's really big. Julia and I were talking about like all the things coming down the road. And I'm like, yeah, this is going to be at a minimum a 2-year problem, potentially 3-year problem with like massive rolling financial impact.
Exactly.
Oh man, now I have the Tiger King in my head. I'll never financially recover from this.
I think I might be the only person who hasn't watched that show.
Well, now you can watch
I
it
know,
and
now I
you'll
will watch
understand the
it.
reference. Man, it is a steaming pile. That's all I'm going to say. But it's the pile you got to watch. But
Yeah.
having the ability to just take the long view and also like I think not pretend and fool ourselves that this is going to be business as usual next week or this is going away by the fall. It's not, because of the cataclysmic effect that we've had in the economy, the size of the businesses, the fact that the airlines are severely disrupted right now. The airlines alone are a massive indicator about the economic disruption that we're facing. And if we can acknowledge that and look at the airlines almost as a huge indicator, that is going to be really smart for us. We need to look at this as a long-term problem and not pretend it's going to go away. If we're like, okay, well, new normal. If I hear that phrase one more time, I'm going to punch someone. I hate it.
It's not normal.
No, this is the new awful. How about that? So as long as we're
just
as long as we're acknowledging like what's so, then we can actually make decisions about it. Because, part of the reason why people are having such a hard time is because it's like, I don't know how to deal with this temporary situation. I'm wishing it to go away. I'm just going to keep my head down until it goes back to normal. Don't do that.
It's not going away.
Don't do that.
I think you hit the nail on the head with the rolling financial impact, right? So I knew going into this, similar to you, right, because you serve clients, that I may not be directly impacted right when COVID was starting. My bookkeeper clients maybe not be directly impacted when this was starting, but it's the rolling effect, right? It's not necessarily the right now that some industries have to worry about. It's the 3 months from now, it's the 6 months from now, it's the year from now. And I don't say that because I think people can look at that as being like, oh, that's fucking depressing. Thanks, Michelle and Laura, for, raining on that parade. But, I think
whatever we can do to ruin your day, we're here for you.
Good job. But I think, there's something freeing about that too.
There is.
Because I think when you're living in kind of that temporary flux, you can't make calculated decisions.
Purgatory is hell. I'd either be firmly in hell and be like, okay, well, this is really warm. Yep, got it. Or in heaven.
Right. And I think, again, it comes full circle to what we were talking about earlier around what you can and cannot control. You can control your ability to pivot. You can't control if the customers will react, but that's where testing and tweaking and all the kind of strategic approaches come in with that. You can control your attitude when you wake up in the morning. And if there are some days that are going to be fucking hard and you're entitled to your emotions of waking up and hating the world, that's fine. You don't show your employees necessarily that full breadth of it, or some of your stakeholders or whatnot, but I think you're exactly right in the fact that this is not a new norm. It's like almost like a rolling norm or a rolling shit show. I'm not really sure. But
rolling
there
shit
are
show
positives.
feels accurate. Yep.
Yeah. And I think the main thing that you can control is the way you're looking at it and the way you're viewing it. Right.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And you know what? You just reminded me of something else that needs to be talked about. So, we work with a lot of restaurants and, we've seen some really interesting pivots. And one of the things that our restaurant owners are already experiencing as they're opening up is they're bearing the brunt of a lot of customer pent up frustration. And, this is the thing where compassion is so important because, these business owners are having a hard time. They're having to spend extra money to do business and make less money. They're having to walk farther to your table to bring you your food. I mean, just using the restaurants as an example. But they're also having to deal with people that have been at home for a long time, aching for normal, who are now just finally going out and then discovering that the things that they used to love are not as normal as they remember, and they're angry and they don't know what to do with their feelings. And, I joke with Julia all the time. She's allergic to feelings. So I'm really glad I'm here to help with this. But like, this is a really important thing to remember. Like, you as the business owner, you as the person that's in the business supporting the business owner, but also you as the customer of the business, you all have feelings, and everyone watching this needs to have compassion for the people you're doing business with, however you're doing business. It's compassion up, compassion laterally, compassion
all the way,
down,
all the way,
because this
360.
is hard. I mean, I even
Yeah.
think about my parents who are in their 70s. They just want to go out. I remember my mom, she's such an extrovert. She's like, I just want to go out. I just want to sit at a restaurant. I just want to be with people. Right.
Yeah.
And then she goes out and she's scared. She's on high alert because she has no immunity. She's older and she's scared, and the restaurant's doing their best. Now, my mom's a polite lady, thank God. I don't like
Some
being
people
on
are
her bad
not.
side.
Some people are
Yeah,
not.
exactly.
Yeah.
But this is where compassion is really, really important. And my mom, God bless her, she's just been like so like hyper aware of like, wow, these kids that are bringing me my dinner, they're doing their best. And this is not what I remember. And I'm sad. And these other people are still doing their best. Their best is not good enough, but it's as close as I'm going to come. And I can choose to bring my best self,
Right.
even though I might not even be feeling like my best self.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, I think there's, like you said, there's a lot of different feelings on a lot of different angles, right? So if you're a business owner, I mean, I have people in my sphere that are hairdressers and all that, and I think they were equally as scared to open their doors as they were to keep them closed, right? Because of the
Absolutely.
onslaught of people. And now you're looking at a scalability issue, right? That you never even knew you had, plus an added expense. And it's that balancing act. So that's kind of like one half of it. But then to your earlier point, I don't know if you know this about me, but I worked, I don't know, since age 12 through mid 20s in the restaurant industry. So, I mean, I've
I
opened
did not know
restaurants,
that. You
I've
get more and more
bartended,
interesting every time.
I've been on so many, I've basically worked every role, the exception of cook, because nobody wants me to do that, in a restaurant. So,
Fair.
and a shout out to my mom, because she's done that for much of her life too. And there's a different level of respect that goes with from me to people that do that.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, as somebody, so say you're a server, say you're a business owner and that, and somebody comes in with a nasty attitude, as we know some of them are, because you're talking about misdirected anger, right? I think the thing is to understand it is not you, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Don't
saying
take it
that to
personally.
all of the business owners out there. And I think, you know, if you look at the 4 agreements, if you're not familiar with that.
Oh my God, get out of my head. I was just going to be like, I hope she's going to mention the 4 agreements.
Yeah,
Ta-da!
so yeah, exactly. It's not about you. It's not, don't take it personal, which is very hard to do when everybody is emotionally raw.
Especially if you're
Right?
dealing with your own emotions and they are raw.
Exactly. And you're triggered. But I think
You might need to write this on the back of your hand. Don't take it personally. Don't take it personally.
Exactly.
Look at it 18,000 times a day.
Yeah. And it's hard. And I think you definitely brought up something of like, you know, just don't be a jerk. When this whole thing started, I was joking with somebody and I was like, I think maybe I used some more colorful expletives, but I really just wanted t-shirts printed up that said, don't be a, you know, and whatever it is, because nobody needs that shit.
No. And they're also like,
stay home.
You never know what someone is dealing with. So, I don't even remember what it was, but again, with my mom, she's a great woman, by the way, I'm going to hype her up. She's always been sending me this thing, like walk a mile in my moccasins. Like, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't know what the other person is going through.
Yeah.
So because you don't know, lead with love anyway. You don't know if the server like that is bringing you your food is literally $5 away from missing their rent payment and getting evicted. You don't know that, you know, and leading with compassion and love is important across business. But of course, this is a universal concept. I think, listen, it's my 2 cents. People are like, oh, it's just business. Bullshit. Bullshit. Okay. Humans are humans. And this is an activity that we engage in because it gives us their ability to put food in our mouths and, you know, roofs over our heads. There is no separation. And anyone that believes in the separation, they're really missing out because it's just people talking to people. And at the end of the day, as long as you remember that, you're going to do a great job. Now, if you want to compartmentalize so you can, you know, put your feelings in different places, go ahead. But it's humans dealing with humans.
Yeah.
Period.
And I think, you know, I think that's what I work a lot with clients on, is that integration of, you know, life and business, right? I will use the word hate, and someone can go through all my stuff and find a time that I actually use this term, but I hate work-life balance. I hate that term because I always feel like it's unattainable. And I think it signals that my work is here and my emotion in my life is here.
Well, and it needs to be 50-50 and like equally stacked, and it's not.
But to your point, it's when you go into business, right? And you're running a business, or you're in business, or you're working in a business. I don't care which level, or you're a customer, whatever it may be. You can compartmentalize in order to function, but you still need to remember empathy. You still need to remember that, you don't have a business without the humans necessarily, unless you're in
Correct.
something that doesn't do with humans, right? Um, so, and it's not hard. I think a lot of people, I speak to this a lot, is people over engineer this shit all the time. You know,
That's
here's
fair.
your multi-level step plan for customer service. Here's your multi-level step plan for this and that. When it really boils down to giving a shit and putting the actions behind that.
I agree. And perhaps not necessarily being perfect about it. Sometimes
Right.
messy is not only okay, but it's actually preferred. Um,
Mhm.
boy, it was really fun when all this COVID stuff started to unroll, and I was getting emails from legging companies and everybody that I've ever done business with ever telling me their COVID plan. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I never
You're
give a
seeing it
shit.
right now with equality and everything too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
There's
the
just so
same
much
formula.
going on. It's like,
Yeah.
stop talking,
Start
just
doing.
be awesome, serve people in a better way, and I'll do business with you when I'm ready. And
Yeah.
it's nice to know that you care. So just express and just live your truth. Don't just send me a corporate email. Like
Yeah.
it's devoid of humanity. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I mean, talk is cheap, right? On a lot of levels. So I think it was, if you're not
yes.
familiar with Ed Milet, who I love his stuff, go Google him, everybody. He's fantastic. He put out a post today, and it was essentially speaking to that of like, you know, talk is, I think he actually said talk is weak, right? So talking about something is weak, acting on it really is the truth of,
Yep.
character. It's the truth of a solid business. It's the truth of
I agree with that.
humanity. Um, and I think that will take you a lot further in this climate than, just putting out a fucking email about it. And if that's all you can do, that's a whole other conversation. I don't want somebody coming back saying, well, I don't have the resources or the money to do. There's
Yeah.
always something.
But you know what? Behaviorally, the way you treat your clients, the way you treat your employees, if that all you can do is lead from a place of compassion and love, and that's the only thing you can do, it's going to
Good.
have a trickle down effect. They're going to feel better. They're going to do better work, and they in turn will treat your people, your customers better. So
Yeah.
it's just going to have impact. Like, as part of my other company where I've got the book and the education company, like I have this big mission where I'm trying to literally change 10 million lives. And I want to help people feel better from the inside so they can have an organic impact where I don't have to push it out to all 7 billion people. It starts with 10 million. If you heal those people, other people will be
Yeah. It's
like,
a ripple
wow,
effect.
why are you so happy? And things will spread organically. So that's the kind of virus I want to spread, is a good one, right?
Yeah.
So what I want to do is I want to talk about the free thing that you are giving away, and I want to talk about what we're giving away. But before we do that, and then we're going to wrap up, I want to actually just kind of give some takeaway points for the people that are watching, and because we've talked a lot about a lot of things, big feelings, responding with empathy,
Yeah.
whatever, but the most important takeaway points, and if I miss anything, Michelle, let me know.
Yeah, of course.
Number one, take care of you, the human.
Right.
It's so important to nurture yourself and acknowledge how you feel, give yourself permission to not be okay, talk and actually work on you as the business owner or the employee of the business or whoever you're showing up in your role,
Yeah.
work on you.
Yeah. Agreed.
Number
Amen.
two, yay. Can I get an amen? All right. So number two, build your ideal client profile. You have to build this avatar or, ICP or
Yeah.
however you want to call it, and really carefully define who do you want to talk to and how do you want this person, using your words, how do you want them to remember you?
Yeah.
How are you going to attract the person that loves you and screams about you from the rooftops, and instead of you having to convince people to do business with you, they're convincing you to do business with them? That's what your ideal customers will do.
Right.
Vision advertising can help you with your ideal client profile, and I know that you can help people to actually tend to
Absolutely.
their humanity and help them to be better leaders.
Yeah, and I think with that, developing your avatar comes developing your ideal community or network too. Who you want to align
Absolutely.
yourself with, who what you're judged by the company you keep, right? I'm always going to be a big
Yeah,
fan of
girl.
that, right?
Yep.
So be aware of that, right?
So number three, we've got build your authentic brand. Don't just send, emails because you need to say something for the sake of saying something.
Mhm.
Be authentic, lead with your heart, and genuinely relate to people. Listen to your customers when they come in and they're giving you misdirected anger. Listen to your employees if they're stressed out and frustrated, not on their A game. Listen to other people, bring your empathy, and try to do your best to actually participate in the solution and mindfully pivot
Right. And I
by
think give people the
listening.
benefit of the doubt too on some things, right? Like if a customer comes in and they're a complete asshole, right?
No, that's where the
You know,
empathy thing's in. We can
yeah,
do
the
blind
empathy comes
empathy. I'm
in.
going to assume you got some
Yeah.
things going on.
Yeah,
None of my business. I'm just going to
exactly.
assume.
But I know it's not me. Don't own that. I think that's the ownership piece of that, what you own versus what they own, right?
Yep, exactly. So, number 4, reach out for help. Now, reach out for help. This is an important thing that I think that talking about has been my favorite part of this whole conversation, and just asking for help, not just from a therapist, from a coach like yourself, from a marketing
Exactly.
company like us, but sometimes ask your customers. I don't want my business to die.
Mhm.
Will you help keep me going? Please
Exactly.
lean into the vulnerability and ask for the help you need. I don't know how to apply for the PPP. Will someone help me? It's
Exactly.
okay to be vulnerable. It makes people like you more.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, it's this age old kind of mentality of like your emotions are here and your business is here. Like that's not happening as much anymore, guys. Like it has to be an
Mhm.
integrated approach. And I think people are now starting to see that that is actually going to get you further in business.
Oh,
Right. And
Brene
because
Brown is a leader
yeah,
of that
well,
movement.
right, exactly. And I mean, sometimes I even say like, it's a shame sometimes that saying thank you is such a rarity that it's a marketing strategy, a genuine thank you,
That
or
hurts my
different things like
heart,
that.
but you're right.
Um, but it's true. It works, right? So I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying on that. So
The last point, and then we're going to talk about the freebies, is perhaps the most important. Face the truth so you can pivot. Get
yes.
creative in your pivot strategy. Find ways that you can digitally deliver an alternate version of what you already do, or perhaps introduce a new version of what you do, or something new entirely. Look for
Yeah.
problems that people are having. Think about your ideal customer's experience in life
Yeah.
and how you can help solve the problem they're currently experiencing.
Yeah. I mean, look for the holes, right, guys? Like
Yes.
when you go into business 101 is what can you solve and where can you be a solution? It doesn't mean you reinvent the wheel. It means you just may make a wheel that is tweaked a little bit differently to appease a certain audience. It does not have to be this huge, gigantic thing, but you do have to look for the holes in the industries that you're in, or maybe in a different industry, because there's plenty of them out there right now.
Amen, sister. Amen.
Yeah.
So, why don't you tell me about this amazing giveaway of your month end planning sheets? Tell me what this is for and
Yeah.
how people can use it right now.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan, like I said earlier, getting your eyes on your numbers, getting your eyes on your progress, setting goals and tracking them, because a lot of the times people aren't do that and they're kind of just free flowing through their strategic planning for their business.
Mhm.
So what this little freebie gives you is a snapshot of just that. It gives you a thing to sit down at the end of the month and look at your business, and say, okay, here's my revenue, here's my expenses, here's what went well, here's what didn't. And then it also gives you, there's a chart in there that you can look at your social media following and try to grow that. There's a lot of valuable nuggets in there, because if you don't examine where you've been, you can't know where you're going,
Amen.
right? So all
Yes.
of those things.
That sounds great. Guys, definitely download that. Michelle is awesome in all the ways a person could be awesome, and
Thanks.
you really want her business insight. So let me tell you about the free thing that Vision Advertising is giving you, because free stuff is awesome.
It is.
We are giving you a negotiation secrets guide. This is
Nice.
10 approaches that will help you to score the highest compensation and pay the lowest prices every time. Now, why is that relevant in the middle of a crisis and the world being on fire? Because you might need to negotiate with your bank. You might need to negotiate with your landlord. You might need to renegotiate contracts. You might
Mhm.
need to buy things, and you absolutely have to be paying the lowest prices right now if your business is affected. If you are trying to, I don't know, pay your bills, you might want to figure out how to negotiate and talk with existing clients. And this guide gives you the tools and 10 powerful strategies that I've been using for over 20 years that helped me to still exist as the cheapest person alive and make a lot of money.
Yeah. Amen. Amen
Julia
to
calls
that.
me frugal, but I like cheap. I'm proud of being
Yeah.
cheap.
Watch the connotation on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a great resource, because, I think a lot of people are scared to ask. And you don't know until you ask, right? You don't know until you negotiate or attempt to negotiate, because there's a lot
Absolutely.
more people willing to be flexible nowadays than there used to be.
Absolutely. And if you don't ask, the answer is definitely no. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
these tips are available to everyone that is watching in the replay. These are available to those that have pre-registered. Now, this is not going to be live later. So if you want in on this, we will be promoting this afterwards, and everybody that registers will get these freebies. You don't have to do anything extra. We'll just direct you right to them. So thank you so much for tuning in, Michelle. I adore you. I think so highly of you, and it's been an absolute pleasure to share some brain space with you and bring some really important conversation to the chaotic world. I can't wait to have you back and do this again.
Yeah, I like it. I could talk all day. So thank you very much for having me. I appreciate that too.
Oh, truly a pleasure. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.